Laura, I've got to run. I'll be back late, my husband called out, practically tossing the words over his shoulder as the front door slammed shut behind him. He was clearly in a hurry. His old university crew had finally managed to pull together enough people for a proper meetup at a cafe. It had been ages since they'd all seen each other. So tonight was kind of a big deal. As he rushed through the streets, his phone kept buzzing nonstop. It was William, his closest friend, on the line again. "You almost here? You're about to miss all the good stuff," William urged, clearly buzzing with excitement. My husband assured him he was already en route. The two of them went way back. They'd graduated together a decade ago, and after a couple of years, grinding through early career hurdles, they'd both landed solid jobs at the same firm. Now they worked side by side, and thankfully, sharing a workplace hadn't put any strain on their friendship. If anything, it made them tighter. They always had each other's backs. Still, there was one thing about William that Rodney just couldn't get past: his constant unfaithfulness. Even though William had a wife waiting at home, he was always chasing after other women, some of them married themselves. When Rodney confronted him about it, William would just shrug and say things like, "It was never about love. I married her for the life her rich daddy could give me." Turns out, William's father-in-law had set him up with a cushy apartment and even gifted him a car, enough to trap him in what he saw as an easy life. William believed love was something you could stumble upon anywhere, anytime. Rodney, on the other hand, had no such confusion. He loved his wife deeply. She made their home warm, comforting, and full of peace. Sure, they argued now and then. Who doesn't? But their bond was solid. Still, it was painful for him to watch William throw himself into one empty fling after another. At first, Rodney tried talking sense into him, but after a while, he realized it was pointless. William had made his choices, and nothing Rodney said was going to change that. He figured, well, he's a grown man, let him live how he wants. But Rodney did make one thing clear. He didn't want to hear about William's affairs anymore. He was tired of carrying the weight of his friend's messy romances, especially when they clashed with everything Rodney stood for. So they quietly agreed to steer clear of that topic. Still, Rodney could always tell when William was caught up in a new fling. The man would strut around like a rooster in a henhouse, eyes sparkling, chest puffed out, practically radiating ego. Sometimes, Rodney got the sense that this was what William lived for, the thrill of the chase. Then came the day everything started to shift. Rodney showed up at work like any other morning and dove into the usual pile of customer orders that had built up overnight. He was elbow deep in paperwork when the secretary strolled over to his desk. "The boss wants to see you." "Something happened," she said in a slightly serious tone. "Nothing bad, I hope?" She smiled a little. "No, I don't think so. That's the good news." Rodney made his way to the office, his heart thumping just a little faster. As he stepped inside, the boss greeted him with a big, friendly grin and motioned for him to sit down. After a bit of small talk, the boss leaned in and got straight to the point. "Rodney, our regulars can't stop singing your praises. The manager says you're always hitting every target, and frankly, I agree. You've earned a promotion, no doubt about it." For a moment, Rodney was speechless. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, and now it was finally happening. Grinning from ear to ear, he thanked his boss for the trust and recognition, then headed back to his desk. No sooner had he sat down than William popped up beside him, curiosity written all over his face. "So, what was that all about?" "I got promoted," Rodney beamed, unable to hide his excitement. "Can you believe it? Took me long enough." William's expression darkened. "Wait, we started here at the same time, didn't we? How come you're getting promoted and I'm not?" I don't think I've done anything less than you. Rodney looked at his friend, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and frustration. He remembered all the times William had wandered off to handle personal stuff during work hours, or vanished on his long smoke breaks, letting his workload slide. Still, William stood there, genuinely baffled, waiting for an explanation. Rodney chose his words carefully. Will, maybe it's time to ease off the dating apps during work. Huh? You missed a few urgent orders because of that, remember? William's face twisted. So what? Now I'm useless around here? He snapped. You think you're some kind of superstar now, huh? Rodney sighed, trying to de-escalate the tension. But William wasn't having it. He stormed off without another word, leaving behind a bitterness that would slowly fester. What Rodney didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have predicted, was just how far his friend's jealousy would go, and how deeply it would affect his life. As Rodney exited the building after completing his task at the law firm, a sense of unease began to settle in his chest. Wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the weight of the past few days, or perhaps it was Larissa's coldness the night before, still echoing in his mind. He crossed the street to head toward the subway. But as he glanced to his right, something, or someone, caught his eye through the large glass windows of the hotel lobby. His feet stopped involuntarily. There, standing near the reception desk, was a woman with familiar auburn hair. She was laughing softly, her eyes gleaming in that way only someone truly captivated could shine. Beside her stood a man with his back turned, tall and confident, leaning in just a little too close. Rodney's heart began to pound. He squinted. It was Larissa, and the man beside her. He didn't want to believe it, but that profile, the way he stood, the jacket slung carelessly over his shoulder, it was William. Rodney felt like someone had punched the air out of his lungs. He instinctively stepped back behind the hotel's outer column, hidden from view. He watched as the receptionist handed over a room key. Larissa and William took it without hesitation. They exchanged a quick glance, and then, without speaking another word, they disappeared into the elevator. For a long moment, Rodney stood frozen. The papers in his hand suddenly felt too heavy. The busy city around him had faded into a low hum. Something inside him cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet, excruciating finality. He had trusted them both. One was his closest friend, the other, his wife. His life, stable, warm, familiar, had just split at its seams with a single, chance glance across a street. Walked home in a daze that night, not even remembering how he got there. The takeout leftovers from the night before still sat, untouched, in the fridge. He didn't touch them. He didn't touch anything. He simply sat in the dark and waited. Not for answers. He already knew them. He waited for the storm of betrayal to pass through him, for his hands to stop trembling, for the moment when he could figure out what to do next. But that moment wouldn't come easily. Not when everything he thought he knew had turned out to be a lie. As Rodney approached the hotel, his gaze immediately fell on a parked car. None other than William. It seemed to him that fate had played a cruel trick on him, he thought, and a sly smile flashed across his lips. He quietly took out his phone and quickly took a picture of the couple. When they disappeared inside, Rodney took a deep breath, trying to pull himself together. What he realized in that moment was crushing. William, the friend he trusted, was nothing but a master of deception. With the address of William's place etched firmly in his mind, Rodney drove straight there. Once there, he called William's wife, Daria, who welcomed him warmly into her home. Without wasting a second, Rodney laid bare the truth about William's betrayal, fully convinced that Daria's fierce spirit would ensure her husband paid dearly. the powerful fathers behind the scenes wouldn't turn a blind eye. Sure enough, when William returned that evening, he was greeted by Daria's packed bags, a silent but unmistakable end to their marriage. Initially, William was stunned, but his father-in-law soon made things crystal clear. Suddenly homeless, William had to rely on others' charity. His life spiraled downward as his influential father engineered his termination from work. For the next 6 months, William struggled to find steady employment, all while tightening his belt and battling hunger. Meanwhile, Rodney made the heartbreaking choice to divorce Larissa. Before parting ways, he spent long, painful hours talking to her, desperate to understand the collapse of their marriage. But Larissa could only offer tears, no explanations, no clarity. Rodney was left confused and shattered, unable to grasp how their once happy union had unraveled so quickly. Even if Larissa showed regret, it no longer mattered. The damage was done. The trust was broken beyond repair.